Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and today on Not a Nail Tech I'm going to be using these beautiful pinky tones to create a Valentine's Day set. So we're starting with Birthday Suit, and this is going to be our base. So I'm just going to pop down a nice even layer of this, cure it, and I am going to do a second layer of this just to make sure it's completely opaque. But as you can see, it has absolutely beautiful coverage for such a pale colour. So this set today, it's going to be inspired by illustrations, it's going to be fun, it's going to be funky, and it's going to be totally Valentine's Day inspired. So I'm just going to pop that in the lamp to cure for 60 seconds, and I have done a second coat of that before going in with our ultra matte coat, because these nails for a start are going to be completely matte, because I just think illustration nails with a matte top coat just looks stunning, but also a matte coat underneath all of my detail work will just help my detail work stick in place a little bit better and not move around while I'm working. It gives me a little bit more time. So I've cured that for 60 seconds, and now I'm going in with Very Smooth, and I'm going to take this on a dotting tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to map out where I want my love heart on this nail. So this one's going to fill up quite a lot of the nail, as you can see, so that's going to be the 2 points, and then the next bits are just going to be the top of the curves at the top of the love heart. Also, you can tell when I'm really concentrating because my hair's in the shot, so I do apologise for that because there's a lot of concentrating going on in this video. Once I'm happy with the placement of the dots, I'm going to go in with a fine detail brush and just take in a nice even amount on there. You don't want any pooling at the end of the brush, and just try and mark out where I want the line. So I've got to be quite neat with this because I'm not filling it in, or I'm not colouring in around the heart, so I need the lines to be really smooth. So I'm just going to map out the basic shape, and then I'm going to go back in and thicken up the lines. So I'm just taking a little bit more on my brush this time, just to thicken up those lines, even them out, and get rid of the dots that I put originally. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to pop it in the lamp again to cure, just to make sure that when I go on to the next steps, if I need to wipe anything off, this bit is safe. So now that's cured, I'm going in and I'm just going to be creating some stripes. So I'm going to be doing these with a bit of a gap in the middle. So I'm just going to do one on one side and one on the other, and then I'm going to thicken them up. So I'm just putting in where I want that stripe to finish, and then I'm just going to fill it in. And I'm just doing the same on the other side. Next, I'm adding in the stripes at the bottom of the nail, so we're just continuing the lines from the top of the nail. So I'm just making sure I try and line these up well, which is a little bit difficult when you've got a nail that's got a bit of a curve to it, but you just got to try your best. And the same on the other side, making sure they're all filled in. Then I'm just adding in some stripes at the side of the nail, and that'll just finish off this pattern. Next, I'm using Cabernet, and I'm going to be adding in some fine pin stripes in between those thicker stripes, and this is going to just add a little bit more detail and a little bit more interest and pull the look together. So the aim of this look is that each nail is going to be totally different, but we're going to use all of the same colours and all of the same styles, and it'll just look really cool and really funky. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to stick it in the lamp to cure. Next I'm using Serious Black, and I'm just going to be making a little face. So I'm going to add in some dots, and this is going to be the eyes, and I'm going to go in and just add some eyelids and eyelashes after this too. So I'm just using one of our teeny tiny detail brushes. So you'll notice I actually cure most of the sections in very, very small sections, because if I do anything wrong, I want to be able to wipe off what I've done wrong and not have to worry about it. So I've cured that for 60 seconds, and then I'm going in and adding some eyelashes, because these kind of looks, they're quite detailed, and it is quite difficult, especially if you're new to nail art, to get this the first time. So if you do anything wrong, just get a lint-free wipe and some gel residue remover and just give it a wipe off. Next I'm just adding in a tiny little beauty mark just because I thought it would look cute, and then we're going to go in and add some lips and cheeks. So we're using Cover Story, and I'm just going to use a dotting tool, and this is a really cute way of creating illustrated lips, is to just do 2 dots at the top, 1 at the bottom, and then I'm just adding 1 on each cheek for some blush too. Once that's cured, I'm going back in with Serious Black and just adding a line in between the dots for the mouth just to give it a bit more definition. Once that's cured, I'm using Snow White, and we're actually going to be adding some little dots for highlights on the eyes. So I'm just trying to be really delicate with this because you don't want them too big because they'll look a little bit funny. Next, I'm just going in and adding 2 dots at the top and the bottom, and this is going to be for some stars. So we're going to use stars as our kind of little accent detail. So I'm just popping some bubbles there if you're wondering what I'm doing. So we're using a fine detail brush and just pulling out at the top, the bottom and both sides, and this will just create our star. And I'm just doing the same again on the bottom dot. And finally for this look, I'm just going to be using a dotting tool again and adding some little dots just around the stars. It gives them a little bit of sparkle, and then I'm going to cure it for 60 seconds before moving on to the next one. So that's the nail at this stage. So it won't have any shine at the end because we're going to matte coat it, but we're going to do that all together with all of the other nails. For the next nail, I'm starting out with Very Smooth, and we have that birthday suit base on all of the nails, just so you know. We'll be starting out with that, and I'm going to be doing a Love Heart French tip. This always reminds me of Lana Del Rey. I feel like she must have worn it at some point, and I was obsessed with these nails for years and years and years. So I'm just going in, putting a really even coat before curing it, and I'll be going back in with a second coat as well. Once that's cured, I'm going back in with that second coat and just making sure it's nice and even. Cure that, and then we're using Cabernet again, and we're just going to be going in and making a line around the top of the heart. So I'm just going to be doing this quite thin and just making sure it's really neat. And neaten up that point in the middle, and then I'm going to pop it in the lamp to cure. Next I'm using Snow White, and we're going to be adding a funky little illustrated eye at the top of this one. So this is just going to be for the white of the eye, so I'm just putting on a nice thin layer just to map out where I want that shape to be. So you just play with this until it looks right, stick it in the lamp, and then we're going to do a second coat just to make it completely opaque. Next we're using Berry Smooth, and this is going to be for the colour of the eye. So we're just doing a semicircle inside the last semicircle, oval, whatever you want to call it, and just making sure it's a little bit smaller so we can still see the white of the eye. So again, just doing 2 coats of that just to make sure it's completely opaque. Once that's cured, we're using Serious Black, and we're just going to go in and add in the pupil of the eye. So yet again, making the shape, make sure it's even, fill it in nicely, cure it, and then do a second layer. Now that's cured, I'm going back in with Serious Black and adding an outline to the outside of the white of the eye. And I thought this was going to be a bit trickier, but it actually wasn't too bad in the end. Next, I'm going to be adding in some over the top eyelashes. So we're going with a nice super duper long one in the middle. And then I'm just going to add them all around the outside, so a little bit shorter every time we go around. So what I've tried to do with this is load up the brush enough that I can pop it on the nail, and it'll make it a little bit thicker at the beginning of the line and a little bit thinner at the end. You can see there's a tiny little dot at the end of the brush, and that is what will make the thicker section. Once I'm happy with that, I've cured it again, and we're going in with Snow White. We're going to add in some dots for the eyes just to give it a little bit of sparkle like we did before. And then we're going to add in some stars again as well. So I'm just putting one here and here. And yet again, we're going to go in with that fine detail brush and pull that star into its shape. So you'll find as we go through the video, I'm not going to show you this process for every single star that I do, because you're going to get bored and you're going to go, hey Anna, we've already seen this, we know how to make a star. So for each one, I might only show you one after this because it will get a little bit boring. And again, once we've done this, I'm going to go in and add some little dots for a bit of sparkle again. With that, and that's this nail finished. So this is what it looks like at this stage before we put our matte coat on at the end of the video. So for the next nail, we're going in with Berry Smooth again, and for this nail I'm going to be doing a heart in the middle of the nail. So I'm just going to do the dots on this one. I'm not going to show you me outlining the shape because you've watched me do that before, and this is going to be filled in, so it's a little bit easier with this one because if you make any mistakes you can even it out a little bit more. So once that's filled in and cured, we're going to add some little eyes. So I'm starting off with some dots, and these are going to be a different type of eye. So once the dots are on there, we're going to use one of our fine brushes and pull them out into more of an elongated shape. And I definitely did do this wrong the first time and wipe it off, but I didn't think you needed to watch that. So we pulled it out in the middle, and then we're going to go and pull it out at the sides as well. Make sure you're happy with the shape of them. Just curve off the top and the bottom to make sure they still look a lot like eyes. And then when we're happy, we'll cure these. Now that's cured, we're using Serious Black. And we're going to be adding in some dots for the eyes. And then we're just going to outline the top of the eyes with black as well. Now I'm happy with that. I'm adding in some crazy eyelashes again. So these are just going to stick straight up. We're not trying to make these look realistic, we're trying to make them look funky. So I'll just show you here, we're just going in and adding some tiny little lines. Again, longer in the middle, shorter on the outsides. You're just going to do the other eye, and then we're going to use Cabernet once that's all cured and just outline that heart. I'm just doing a nice thin line around here. I don't want it too chunky, I just want it to be quite delicate. Finish off the points on the heart, and then we're going to cure this. So next we're using Berry Smooth, and I'm just going to add in some stars. So same process as before, drag them out with your fine detail brush and add some dots. And this is just going to finish off the design on this nail. Once that's cured, this nail is ready, and we're going to move on to the next one. So again, we're starting with Berry Smooth, and we're going to be doing some flames. So it's going to kind of be like a flame French tip, if you like. So I'm just going in with some wavy lines to start off with, and I'll be honest with you, this is the first time I've ever done a flame nail, and it actually was a little bit tricky. I did do this, wipe it off, do it again, wipe it off, until I found the right technique for me. So this was the way I found the easiest. I put in my flame marks first before I went in and added some little curves to join it all up. And I'm just spending a lot of time making sure the ends of these lines aren't too thick and they taper off a bit more. And then I'm just going to find the points where I want these to join and just curve them round. I think as well with flames, you don't want all of the points to be the same height, you don't want all of the joints to be the same height, you need to alter them a little bit so it doesn't look too contrived and it looks a little bit more natural. So once I'm happy with the shape, I'm just filling it in, and it might seem a little bit crazy using this teeny tiny thin brush to fill it in, but it actually really helps with keeping the consistency right, so I didn't have to do a second layer. So next I'm just going in with Snow White, and I'm just doing a thin line on the left hand side of all of these flames, just to give it a bit more detail. So the thing about these nails is they don't need to look realistic or accurate because they're meant to look like illustrations, not like a photograph. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going in and I'm making some love hearts. So I'm just using a dotting tool, and if you've seen any of Meg's videos where she's done any little love hearts, you can see how easy it is. So you just add your two dots. You can do them as close together or as far away as you want, depending on the style of love heart, but I wanted them quite close on this one. And then you just use a fine detail brush and pull them down into a point. You want to make sure you've got a little bit of gel polish on your brush when you do this, but not too much. Next I'm using Cabernet, and we're doing the same thing with Cabernet. On the top of the nail where it's light, we're going to be adding in some love hearts. So I'm just going to do 3 on this one. Now the dots are on, we're just using the fine detail brush and pulling that down into a point. Now I'm happy with that. I'm using Serious Black and I'm just adding on some dots. And making them into stars again, because we love stars on this nail set. We love stars on this channel altogether, but they look really cute on this nail set. Then we're just going to add in some sparkly dots. And there's this nail all finished, ready for a matte coat. For the next nail, we're starting with Snow White. And I'm just going to be creating a heart in the middle of the nail. So again, just adding in some dots and using the fine detail brush to pull them down. As you can see for this one, I put the dots a little bit further apart to give it a little bit more definition at the top. Next I'm using Cabernet and we're just going to put an outline around that heart. I did make a little mistake there, so I've just gone in with a tiny brush and some gel residue wipe off solution and just wiped it off. So yeah, just finishing off that outline on the heart before it's cured, and then we're using Berry Smooth. So what we're going to do is similar to the first nail, we're going to be adding in some lines and then we're going to thicken them up. And what we're doing for this one is it's going to be kind of like a sunburst kind of effect. So we're just going to add in some diagonal lines on there too, before going in with Cabernet and putting some really thin pinstripe lines in between all of those. Now I'm happy with that and it's all cured. We're going back in with Snow White. And guess what we're doing now? We're doing some stars because we love stars. So again, I'm just going to show you one. Go in with your fine detail brush. You'll be an expert at stars by the end of this episode. And just pull out those lines before we go in and add some sparkly dots again. And there's the final nail. And for the final step, I'm going to be using Gel Top Coat Nail Sealer. And this is a bit thicker than our normal top coat. So I'm just going to be adding this all over the nails to even them out a little bit where there's any texture, before curing it and going in with our ultra matte coat to mattify all of the nails. And once that's cured, we have our final nail set, which I think have turned out really, really cute, and I wish they were on my own nails right now. I love them. Anyway, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you want any of the products, they'll be listed in the description box below and tagged in the video. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.